Sit here for a little bit, have a cigarette, and excuse me, give people a few minutes to get in. Don't know if I'll get anybody at this hour. It's a lot earlier than I normally do. I'm going to run till uh, around, well, I'll run till I'm either sick of it or till something else grabs my attention. Um, so I've got about an hour and a half till Lotus Eater starts, if I recall correctly. Roundabout, yeah. Okay, so I'll get a warning alarm before Lotus Eaters comes on. Uh, I have that alarm set because, well, I pay for the Lotus Eaters and be damned if I'm going to miss it. Don't really have a topic in mind. I'm going to do a little bit of woodworking in a little bit. I have completed a burn on the piece. Oh, there I go, blowing the chroma out again, just by putting my head down. But yeah, I've had some really good growth on my channel lately, and a couple of my friends have. Whoa. I am one pale son of a bitch. Oh, let me open a window. Oh. It is extremely early for me. I've been up for about an hour or so. Normally, I used to be something of a night owl. That's pretty much gone these days. I find that keeping my circadian rhythm in the relatively natural relatively natural evolutionary range does me well. Thinking I should probably shill this out before I start. So what are we looking at? About 2.5 minutes in, nobody paying attention. So let's see if we can't get some attention by showing it out on my YouTube, or on my Getter and Discord. Let's see, YouTube. And I am in fact live. And just to really, really mess with people that are coming to watch, I'm going to see what happens if I do this. Let's see. Can I get the angle right? That was a bit of an interesting camera trick. I see I've got one viewer. Let's see who that is. I'll respond to chat and then I'll. Oh, I gotta turn the sound down on that. That's gonna make me insane. Let's see who we've got in chat here. Okay, nobody's making themselves known in chat, so thanks for popping in. Give me just a few seconds while I shill this out. And I almost threw a like on my own video. For the record, that's something I generally don't do. I will throw likes at... let me make sure I have that done right. There we go. I will occasionally throw a like on videos that I take part in, but I almost never like my own videos, and if I do, it's generally by mistake. So whoever's here, feel free to make yourself known. Let me just check live chat here. Okay. I'm going to be a couple of seconds just getting this shelled out, and then I will start freaking around. Or actually, I'll start conversing. Looks like I've lost... Oh no, the viewer I have was me. I'm an idiot. Oh well. Let's see here. Okay, let's do it this way. Live now. There's an exclamation point because I like to make it very clear what I'm doing. There, select all. Copy. Yes, I do realize that I talk to myself when I'm doing things. It may come as something of a shock to a lot of you, but I know very few people who don't have an inner monologue. Um, the little voice in your head that tells you what you're doing, the inner narrator, if you will. Okay. So, have I copied this successfully? Yes, I have. Okay. Let's go to. Okay, so what I'm doing right now, I'm just shilling this out on the various Discords. And I realize I'm part of a lot of Discords, which I've begun to notice is a little like Facebook for me. It's very much a time sink. But I do prefer it to Facebook because a lot of the Discords don't censor nearly as badly. Although from what I understand, Discord is run by people who would probably seek to be censorious at some point. So, who knows? And I will point out that while some people on Discord use far harsher language than I ordinarily do, I don't condemn anybody for it because, well, the way I look at it, I'm a free speech absolutist. I do apologize if the sound is still a little low. I will be altering the camera angle and the distance my tablet is from my face shortly. In the meantime, I'll just speak up. Oops, skipped one. And sometimes figuring out where to post on a server is a bit difficult because not everybody labels their stuff the same. I see I've got another viewer. Hello. I think this actually isn't me this time. So let me get my live chat up. Okay, whoever happens to be viewing, I invite you to make yourself known in chat. And I will, of course, respond. I'm not one of these streamers who ignores this chat. In fact, I'm very much the opposite. I like very much to interact with my chat. So, as I said, I'm just now burning through my, or shilling out my live stream to Discord channels and then Getter, and then I'll be done. And I do realize I don't have a great voice for singing, but I do love singing, which is ironic. And when I say I don't have a great voice, what I'm actually getting at is I have a barely acceptable voice in a chorus. Where am I here? Okay, there's the shilling link. One thing I do really appreciate with a lot of the Discords that I'm in, they do provide a very clear space to shill. And paste. Okay, and one left to go. Getter. The reason that I post specifically to Getter is that when I first joined Getter, I was getting massive engagement there. It's fallen off a little bit in the last while, but there we are. Let's have a read of that. Okay, I'm going to pull that down again because it didn't grab the thumbnail. And try this again. Paste, give it a second for the thumbnail to kick up. There we go. Okay. So, just check live chat again to make sure. Hello, Eitherline. 2 viewers apparently. I won't be chatting since I have dishes to do after dinner. Ah, that's right. You're in Australia. Yeah. That's part of the reason I continue to do these randomly, is because I do these randomly because I know I have viewers everywhere, and sometimes it's just fun to talk to people from other places. So I'm just going to sit for a little bit. Now I'm showing no viewers again, which is interesting. I'm fairly certain Etherline is probably just listening while he does dishes, or she. Not 100% sure. Doing dishes after dinner, so I'm going to assume that was the evening meal, which means you would be about 7 o'clock, I would guess. Cool. Okay. And there I go, blowing the chroma out again with my bright, beautiful head. I'm just finishing my first... Oh. Note to self, don't try to talk and breathe coffee. I'm just finishing my first coffee of the day, and I'm going to do a little bit of woodworking this morning. Mostly just drilling and checking fit. It occurred to me last night, I think, during the Discordant Dragons stream, that the 2 horns that I'm going to be making bookends with, they may not, because I'm planning to do a burn in the holes that I drill, I may not have the right size of drill bits selected for both. I think the smaller one that has a much smaller drill bit, I think that hole will work, because what I have to do is drill the holes and then chisel to fit the horns down in. I'll show you all what I'm talking about in a moment, once I finish this. But what happens, of course, when you burn wood is that you lose some of that surface. And with the burn, I'm going to have to sand around in the holes a little bit, which will lose a little bit more of the surface. And because of that, I don't want to use too big of a bit for the initial hole and have the unburned hole fit the horn perfectly, then do a burn, and of course the hole ends up loose and I have to use a lot more glue. My intention is to use just a small bit of glue in the holes, at the base of the hole, so that it becomes invisible, essentially. Ideally, what I'll be doing is press fitting the horns in so that they, so that they never come out. Or rather, so that they don't need glue to be held in. Someone determined, of course, once the press fit can pull them loose again, but if that happens, well, that's not on me. That's you destroying something you purchased from me. And it wouldn't really be destroyed. You'd simply have to drop a couple of drops of wood glue in. Well, you'd have to do a little bit of rough sanding, drop a couple of drops of glue in, and bam, you're set. As long as you don't go overboard with the wood glue, you wouldn't even know that it happened. Let me make sure I don't have any more comments, and then I'll get up and start working here. Oh, come on, live chat. Stop being a pain in my arse. Go top chat, live chat. Okay. According to Adeline, I have 2 viewers. I'm only seeing 1 on the counter. Maybe it's an unlogged in account or something. I do know that since I had 100 subscribers earlier last week. Last week? This week? Last week. Well, it's within the last 2 weeks anyway. I know that since I hit the 100 subscriber mark, that YouTube has started recommending my videos, which, okay, that just guarantees I'm not going to get monetized. That's fine. And I have had a few comments that challenged my opinions. I'm fine with that. I don't have Hassan Piker levels of insecurity where if someone challenges my arguments, I won't simply respond and just ban you. Um, okay, yeah, I'm running out of excuses, so I guess it's time to go to work. Okay, let me just step. Oh, my knees are very, very arthritic today. We've been having some unstable weather because of hurricane season in the Caribbean. What happens is, and I'll try to keep the mirror in my mind for the sake of video. Actually, I don't think I'll bother. But let's say say the Atlantic Ocean is here, and this is the eastern seaboard of the States. Caribbean would be here. Newfoundland is up about here. What happens is a hurricane forms and then rotates up along that area, up along the seaboard with the Gulf Stream. The Gulf Stream passes right by, or right across, where I live, here at the bottom of Newfoundland on the Burin Peninsula. And all that unstable weather, high and low pressure systems, things like that, passes right along. That does a number on my joints. Loads of people find that the weather affects their arthritis. I have bad knees. Well, I've had bad knees since I was a teenager. Um, Trophies of a life well lived. Um, and once I get up and get moving, it'll be a little bit easier to deal with. Standing on occasion tends to be a challenge. Plus, I weigh over 300, or around 300 pounds. I haven't been weighed in a few weeks. I should be due for a doctor's appointment. I believe it's next week. So I should hopefully be able to get weighed then, and hopefully we'll find that I've lost some weight. I'm not particularly hopeful. I have been more active, but the problem with that is I've probably built muscle more than I've lost fat. And muscle being heavier, I may in fact have gained weight. And I seem to have a splinter in my arm, which isn't particularly surprising. Give me just a second to dig that out. Nice. Anyway, let's get to it. Oh. Okay, so one of the first things you'll notice, if you're new, is that I'm actually in a shed. This is technically a workout device. Right now I'm using it simply to stretch, which I can illustrate that easily enough. Believe it or not, that feels really good. Being the size I am, which is pretty obvious from camera. Anyway, being the size that I am, it puts a lot of weight or a lot of strain on your shoulders and your back. And yes, those of you who are coming back, normally I do wear shorts. However, the weather has turned. Really, because of the fairly short summers that Newfoundland gets, we've basically passed into fall at this point. And in about 12 days, I think. What's this, the 13th? 8 days. In about 8 days, it's officially not summer anymore anyway. Excuse me. Let's see. Okay, so as usual, I have to do a little bit of tidying up before I go to work here. Let me check my power level on my tablet. 86% is fine. And get this cable out of the way. This is a charging cable, in case you guys are wondering, for my tablet. I have a charger plugged into the wall behind my bench. Okay. Let's just move you guys over. And that should be good. And show you the bench. And I'll explain what I've been doing. So, won't need this. Might not need this anymore. So, as I was talking about the horns and drilling, going to be drilling holes into this piece, which I've done an all-over burn on already and sanded, cleaned it up, just to show you the texture of the burn. I'll bring it over, and it's not as even as I would like, though that's kind of the point. Let's see if I can find a really good spot. If I can get that to flash in the sun. Okay. In any case, so the burn like this, it does two things. Reveals the grain really well, as you can see right here by my hand. It does reveal the grain really well, which I think is a really nice effect. But it also highlights flaws in the wood. That's a knot there that travels this way. So this particular section I'm going to end up cutting away and not using. There's a few other places where the burn has revealed less than ideal structure in the wood. Here you can see there's a massive crack that's started to separate. On the ends you can see some of the end grain there is, I think that's actually still a bit brown, a bit dirty. This one's not so bad. Okay. So on the ends you can see where the grain structure runs, and what I'll probably end up doing is using some of these sections where there's no, like a small knot like that is really an aesthetic plus for this piece. And you can see, I mean, that grain just looks beautiful with that burn on it, and the texture is really good with that that double sanding that I've done. This piece here, this knot across here, this will probably be my cut line. So what I'll end up doing, and I'll lay this down so you can see it. Let's see here. Okay, so these are, now this is just spruce, most likely, or fir. This is just cheap hardwood, or hardware store wood. So what you would buy, say, for studs for building a house or structure, it's reclaimed. Almost everything I do right now is reclaimed. And what I'll do, I'll take this section here, and using a 5/8 bit, I will be drilling a hole, and because the 5/8 doesn't quite go out to the width of that, what'll happen, and this is what I was talking about, the burn, and this is sealed over with tape just to keep it from checking, because I haven't burned this. I haven't burned this section of this. This is a piece of juniper from the failed flute attempts. And the reason it's shaped like this, and call it a horn, not a stake, is because while we were, a few of us on Discord were talking about the Blade movies, I happened to have this to hand and grabbed my trim plane and just started shaping it. And when I realized what I was shaping was basically a stake, I tried for a symmetrical, more symmetrical shaping. Didn't quite get there, so rather than being a stake, which should be a perfect taper, this is a horn. So it occurred to me that this would look kind of nice standing like this, and just checking my camera angles, sorry. So it would look nice standing like this, and then with a decent base, you could make a paperweight or any number of things. The plan right now is, as I said, for bookends. So what I will probably do is put a hole there, and then probably, I may actually leave this cut knot, and I may go about this far back, and then put a wedge shape in it. The wedge then, of course, being ideal to hold the books together. I may do that. I may simply add a piece on the bottom. I'm considering using what I think is mahogany here. These are parts from an old, well, call it a bin container, I guess. That's where the shame board came from as well. This was the back of the unit. And it was just a throw it on the wall, throw things in it kind of container, but it was made not great, and it had no purpose in my shop, so I decided to give it one. Excuse me. You'll notice there's a metal spike stuck in there. Well, you can't really see it on camera. Light. Let me throw the light on. So you'll notice there's a spike stuck pretty much in the bullseye. That's basically one of my little boredom things when I'm talking or whatever. And I do apologize for that loud snap. I forgot about that. But I did watch a lot of Steven Seagal movies when I was a kid, and it clearly had an effect. So yeah, what I'll probably do is use a piece of this, most likely without any burning, and set that there. That would set on top of it, and then this would be set in, and that would be your bookend. So this would get wedged that way. I might do it that way because that's a much thinner piece of wood. It'll be much easier to cut a wedge in it, or a wedge edge in it, a bevel. And that I can do with the miter saw, just running the miter saw back and forth on an angle. And once that's done, then it's really just a matter of, oh, that was close. We'll put you back where you belong for safekeeping. Check my fingers. My fingers are very dirty. Decisions. For now, we'll lay that back there. This, of course, is the clamp and caul setup I had for holding one end of this while I was doing the burn. This piece, I don't think I'll be using this piece after all, except as an emergency substitute for anything going wrong here. You can see, let me see if I can get the angle right for the camera. There, okay, you can see there's a pretty substantial crack there, and it runs, let me see, down to about here. So basically along that line and then down to here, and it's a little shallower on this edge. But that basically ruins this entire section that I originally intended to use. There's damage through most of this, so most of this is essentially just garbage, at least as far as this particular usage goes. So for now, that's just my emergency. If I need it, I'll grab it, sort of thing. So this piece needs some holes drilled in it before I cut it. So first thing to do is put my C-clamp away. And I have a fairly simple system for my C-clamps at this point. I just hang them up. And as oh wait, no, I'm going to be doing some drilling, so I better keep my safety glasses to hand. Do I have any wipes? I don't. Okay, as I don't have any lens wipes and I've gotten some sweat on this, I'll just give this a quick scrub. These are prescription. I rarely need glasses for anything, but occasionally I do have a hard time seeing the lines on a measuring tape. As you can see, they're pretty small, pretty close together. Precision is very important when you're doing woodwork, so I do occasionally wear the glasses to make sure I got the markings right. Partly because I don't like to squint. Let's see, it says I still have 2 viewers. I'm going to lay this down for just a second and check and see if anybody has said anything in chat for me to respond to. Because that is actually one of the things I love about streaming, is the ability to give instant responses to people all over the world. So let's see what's being said here. I'll put my face back on camera while we're doing that, because I find I've been told repeatedly that I have a very expressive face. Still nothing. Okay, excellent. Hope you've got the dishes done by now, Adeline. Otherwise, you have one hell of a meal. And back to the table. There we are. And as you can tell, I am very much a ginger. Okay, we will lay this rag up here for later, in case I need it again. Something else that I'm doing while I'm thinking about it. One of my subscribers, Caucasian Sasquatch, had suggested that I should consider making keychains. So these are also pieces left over from when I was attempting to make flutes. My plan is, now this one is the thickest of the lot, so that's a manly keychain for sure. But my plan right now is to put my maker's mark on those. I'm talking to a company to get a decent price on a metal stamp, because while I don't necessarily mind um, making my maker's mark by hand. I would prefer to have a simple stamp that I can use, uh, because, well, sometimes pens slip in any case. And this is because this juniper is extremely hard. Like, I'm banging the hell out of that with my fingernail, and yeah, there's no mark coming up on that. I'm pretty sure this is salt infused juniper. So yeah, normally it shouldn't be quite that hard, but this is over 2 years aged and was harvested in a very salt rich environment. So it's somewhat difficult to determine for sure if it's the species or the conditions. But it is very, very hard, and it's just gorgeous wood as well. So, and I have 5 of those that are ready to go. If you're interested, you can email me. Oh, I don't have a description link on this yet. Can I edit this while I'm doing it live? Share mute microphone? No, I can't. Okay. Oh, there's a mute microphone. And unmuted, apparently. Yes, okay. Okay, so if you're really interested, you can check the description of any of my daily videos, any of my live streams. You can email me, contact me on Getter, if you're interested in any of the products. If you're on my Getter, actually the pinned comment, or the comments I pin are the products I'm ready to sell. Let's see. Okay, nothing left for it now but to find a drill. Just seal up my garbage bag here and get that out of the way. Come on. Get off of there. Let go. There we go. Okay. Garbage day is tomorrow, so actually a good idea to get that ready to go today. There we are. Oh, I don't have any bags in there? Oh, there. Normally I have garbage bags at the bottom of the can, but I have a box. Wait, no, there's not that many left in that box, is there? No, okay. So that goes in the bottom of the can. That's garbage, which figures, because now I have my garbage tied up and had to put that somewhere else. That'll be the first thing goes in the new garbage bag. But I will point it out, since I'm in the middle of it, one of the most important things when you're doing work like this is to keep your space clean. Not just because it looks better, but and just to have my face on camera again because I'm so beautiful. But it is really important to keep your space clean when you're working. Because, not just, as I said, not just for the sake of cleanliness, which is important, but because, especially working with wood, too much detritus, debris, sawdust, things like that left around, it's a very high level fire hazard. I've worked for people who didn't have the same level of conscientiousness about cleaning as I do, and I basically went to work every day terrified that there was going to be a fire. Which, yeah, I wasn't terribly unhappy when that job ended. Let's see, what else? Another thing as well, if you've ever tried to walk in snow with Well, think of it this way. It's snow that doesn't compress if you have too much sawdust under your feet. It's a massive slip hazard. You do not want to be trying to get solid footing while you're handling a piece on, say, a table saw, um, or a miter saw, anything that runs with power. Um, More than that, of course, if you have too much dust in the air, it's very hard on your breathing. I mean, a lot of woodworkers have trouble with their lungs as it is. Case in point. Although, to be honest, I think that's mostly from smoking. I've developed a smoker's cough in the last few years, which is really ironic considering everybody else has developed a cough from somewhere else, which we won't talk about. And yes, I just moved the camera so that I could get my drill from behind the camera. I'm going to use the variable this time. Let me check my battery. I'm pretty sure I put my I usually put my batteries away charged. So that can sit in the chair for a minute. Okay, so all that I have left to do now is drill a hole. Now, I will point this out as well. These two spikes are different sizes and different diameters. This one I've got a 3/4 inch bit selected for. Let me just bring that camera angle back down again. But the problem is, again, I'm not certain that, actually this looks a lot better than the last one I had selected for it. I had a 7/8 picked out for it, and it was just far too wide, even not accounting for burn loss, surface loss from burning. So this should, that's about a 1/4 inch at least that I would get back. Let's see here, 3/4, yeah, okay. So what I'm looking at here is, of course, I'll drill this hole. It will not fit initially, even with the tape taken off. And the plan is to chisel out a little bit and then do a burn. What I may do instead, rather than using the chisel, I may just do the burn and sand and see if I can press fit from there. I don't think I'll lose that much mass. Like what we're talking about is losing this side here. I don't think I'll lose that much mass with one burn and sand. So perhaps what I will end up doing, or having to do, is to do a burn, sand, and I may do a little chiseling beforehand. This is going to be a bit finicky, but it is what it is. It would be nice if there was a formula to predict exactly how much burning to how much surface loss, but that doesn't exist. So this is where the art of woodworking comes in. It's having a feel for your materials and sometimes playing very much by ear. I'm just looking at this piece because I wanted to make sure there's no checking on that end, and there's not. Okay. Okay, so, moment of truth. You guys get to watch me actually do some work. Before I do that, though, I just realized that I have 2 spray cans here that I want to move. And the reason I'm moving them isn't particularly aesthetic or anything. It's simply because I'm working with spinning metal and wood, and there's always a microscopic chance of shrapnel and puncture, and that would be both messy and bad for my breathing. So those remain there in that shelf. Okay, yeah. So let's do some drilling and see what we've got. That's really the only way to figure out if this will work properly or not. I'm going to be putting one glove on because I'm going to be drilling down into this. I will be putting the shame board behind it, so I'll have to move that spike over there into the other shame board. And what I'll be doing, I'll be taking this shame board and I'll be putting down under it, and drilling down. Hopefully I'll only hit the shane board, I won't hit the surface of this. I doubt I will. Always something to keep in mind though. And I'll use this side of the shane board since I've got the other side torn up a little bit. That's got a little bit of a tear out there. I want to remove that because they're over here. There we are. And that's the aforementioned trim plane that I use when I'm tooling around. It's actually turned out to be an extremely handy tool. So yeah, the purpose of the glove is to protect my hand and to protect this surface. I'm going to be drilling here down this way, and I want the glove to hold the piece down, but also if the piece happens to twist, having the glove on will protect my hand. As far as protecting the wood itself goes, the reason that I'm wearing the glove is to prevent too much rub on this this nice burned surface, so that I don't end up with too much light surface. I don't take too much of the soot out. That lovely burned surface. That would be easy enough to rub off at this point. So I'm going to start with the 5/8 bit's going to lose even more. That's interesting. I'll start with the 5/8 anyway though, and we'll see what we've got. Now, many of you have seen people do this to put a bit in. My suggestion is to do this because if it twists, it won't break your wrist. And also if you've got a variable speed, then you have a lot more control of how fast that starts to turn. I know people who try to do that with an electric drill, a plugged-in electric drill. You can really torque your wrist, do yourself a lot of harm doing that, so try to be careful. Let's get my good luck charm sorted out here. There we are. For those of you who recognize it, yes, that is in fact Dr. Fate. So we go for about center on the piece, and okay. We've discovered one of the downsides of cheap tools. Okay, so we've got a relatively shallow hole there, but it's not terrible. I'm somewhat surprised that that bit actually came out. There we are. I'll speed it up for the second go. Okay, that should be more than enough. It's only about 3/8 of an inch or so deep. That should be plenty. I forgot to mention why I'm using a spade bit. The reason I'm using a spade bit is because if I'm press fitting, that means that I'm going to be compressing the sides tight against the piece I push in. And I better get my chisel for that, just a second. Just knocking out those little shreds there. Of course, shortly that wouldn't have been a problem anyway because I will be doing a burn here, but the less loose wood that's in the hole when you go to burn, the better, because it discourages runaway. should be okay. Yeah, okay. So the reason I'm using a spade bit, which is this one that has the point on it, is because if I'm press fitting here, I'm going to be creating essentially a sealed container, and that means it's going to need somewhere for air to go, and that's going to need a little bit of work as well. That's okay. I already knew I was going to have to widen this hole a bit anyway. So what's going to happen is, knock that out, that little pocket back there created by this point, it's actually kind of warm and comfortable, that hole in there will give the air that's underneath the spike somewhere to, or the horn rather, somewhere to go to compress into. And also then, if it turns out that I do need to glue, then there's some room there for the glue to expand in rather than coming back up out of the hole and making a mess of my piece. So that's that. Now, very obviously that is not going to fit because it is, it's significantly larger. So I think what I may do is take a chance on the 3/4 bit. Or do I have an intermediary between 5/8? I don't. Okay. No. So what I'm going to have to do is go with a larger bit. After all, fortunately I already have the spade bit hole set in there, so it's going to be a little wobbly at first, but once that gets down to where the spade can grip, it'll punch in pretty good. And again, if I end up screwing this up, well, I can always do it again on another part. It's part of the reason I have such a large piece that I've burned. Okay. There we are. Okay, I'm going to slow that down again while I start though. Actually, I'm going to have to go faster after all, because I need to chew that off fast. Yeah. Okay, and I did deepen the hole a little bit, and managed to keep it more or less centered, which is fine. I'm not really too concerned about keeping the whole thing centered. As long as I'm not too far to one side or the other on that hole, it won't shatter when I go to push things in. No, I no longer need the 5/8 bit, so I will immediately put that away. Huh. That's interesting. Oh, I see what I did wrong here. I put that piece back in the wrong slot. There we are. Okay. See, I didn't think my math was that far off. I still remember 6 being smaller than 7. Okay, actually that can stay there anyway. So now we'll have another look at the spike, which still won't fit. It's significantly closer, so I'll mark it now with a pencil. Oh, that's a pen. I'll mark it now with a pencil, and that'll give me the very extreme edge of my my hole, and that'll tell me where I've gone too far. And the reason I'm using a pencil for this instead of a pen, even though I do like to work with pen, is because pencil is much shinier and leaves far less marking on the wood itself. So I won't necessarily have to sand it later or try and get rid of what amounts to a tool mark later on. Yeah, okay. I'll have another look at that. Now that I have that shaped, I'm just going to check that against a 1-inch piece, or 7/8 bit rather, and see if I shouldn't have used a 7/8. 7/8 might actually work there. I'm gonna give that a shot. And like I said, the worst that can happen is it screws up and I have to start somewhere else. Okay. Now, yeah, okay. And just to bear in mind, the reason that I ended up having to change bits, excuse me, a few times here, is out of an abundance of caution. So, it's not always a bad idea to be careful. As one of my influences in woodworking says, it's a good idea to sneak up on a cut if you can help it. Get that back in there, get that protected. Now, let's see what we've got here. Okay. This time when I was drilling, I was peering down the hole very carefully to make sure that once the depth had been evened out, once I had reached the same depth with this 3/4, 7/8, isn't it? 7/8. Once I had reached the right depth with the 7/8, so that the line from the 3/4 disappeared. Once that disappeared, I stopped drilling. I don't believe I need to go any deeper. And there's a little bit there that needs to come off. And this is one of the downsides of working with both cheap and essentially primitive tools, because I don't have a drill press. I have to occasionally clean things up, which also means it's a good idea to sneak up on your cuts. And that's a 1/4 inch chisel from Task. Very cheap brand. It was just what I had available to purchase. Local hardware store. Mostly because I can't afford to go and shop at somewhere like Lee Valley at this point. That's very close. Okay, so I'm going to take the tape off now, and we'll see how that fits. And I'm over 50 minutes, so I'm probably coming up on time to end soon. Now, the thing I'm terrified about here is if it turns out that the tape was a lot thicker than I thought, and it actually is, but if it's too much thicker, then this won't fit in. So fortunately, I'm at the point here where it looks like it will just barely not press in. So that's good news. So I will put that back there. And the next thing I have to do is to do a burn in here and then sand it out. So I will need sandpaper, which I threw out. Darn. Okay. So this is a little bit of old 100 grit sheet sander, plate sander, whatever you want to call it. But basically, this would normally go onto your flat single directional, unidirectional sander. In this case, I'm not using it for that. I'm going to be tearing a piece off and just using that to get into the hole. So the last thing you guys are going to see me do is a burn, and that's where I'm going to end it. I'll sit down, have a cigarette, and a quick chat with you guys before the Lotus Eater starts. Actually, I'll need to keep that glove on. So, because I'm doing a burn, I need to get away from the walls, and I need to point my torch in that direction. So, I will bring you guys over here, bring my pretty face back up, because, well, you might as well be at an angle where you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to take my glasses. Actually, no, because that occasionally crackles, I'm going to keep my glasses on. And again, I mean, lots of cheap tools. This is just a cheap, essentially this is meant to be a kitchen torch for making things like creme brulee. But it serves its purpose for what I'm doing. And just to make sure you guys can see what I'm doing. Excellent. And I'm just getting a good burn on the edges of the holes. Not too concerned with the bottom, but I want to make sure there's a good burn on the edges. Blow out any embers that happen to form. And that's actually pretty cool to the touch, because I didn't run it very long. So now, all I'm going to be doing is sanding around the inside of that edge. However, that needs some time to cool, so you guys aren't actually going to see me do this stream. So right now, I'm going to have a sit down and a cigarette with my chat. And I do appreciate that I have 3 viewers and 2 likes. Thank you very much. That's a great ratio. Live chat. Balloons. Hi, Balloons. Don't think I've had you here before. Welcome. What's up? Well, you just saw. Give me just a second here to get my apron off, and I'll sit down and have a chat with you guys. I believe I've got about 5 minutes or so to kill before Lotus Eater starts. And if you guys aren't subbed to the Lotus Eaters, or you don't follow the Lotus Eaters, I can't say I blame you, but I wonder what you're doing with your life. No, I'm honestly just kidding. I do tend to make a lot of jokes, though. I don't think life is worth living if you're not doing it humorously. Well, I've got most of a half an hour before that starts. Excellent. That's even better than... You guys actually might get to see me sand. In that case. Just get my stand set up here and get down to the extremely fancy chair. There we are. And I'm probably going to have to pull this out a little bit so that you guys can hear me. I've been accused repeatedly lately of speaking very softly, which, if you spent time in my presence, you would know is not true. I don't particularly care for that angle. That's not bad. Okay, let's see what's going on live chat now that I'm actually paying attention. Okay, so, yeah, if anybody's got a topic they want to talk about, by all means, make yourself heard. And I'll give it a few seconds for lag and things to catch up. Oh, I'm going to turn off that light, too. There's no point burning power for no good reason. There we are. And of course, I went and put my sweater on before I was done sweating. Go figure. Anyway. Excuse me. Having a lot of coffee burps this morning. Live chat. Okay, I just joined. What are you making, mate? Hi, Tomb of Arminius. I'm making an art project, actually. I'll have this cigarette now, and I'll show you guys real quick. Essentially, it's bookends. And I'm thinking... I've got a design concept in mind, but it's one of those things that can shift a fair bit. This is just a decorator piece. During a discussion on Tomb of Arminius. No, I recognize the name. I don't think I've... You must have been in one of my chats before, I'm sure. In any case, I'll get up and get one of the pieces and show you her. So this, if you've been following me for any length of time, you know I was trying to make a flute for one of my friends, the Ghost of Garduna, here on YouTube. Go give him a like and a subscribe if you're into... How does he describe it? I don't think he really puts a label on it, but I tend to think of it as folk punk or punk folk music. Go check him out. What I was trying to do was make a flute out of this wood here. Let me make sure there are no bugs sitting on this. Okay, so this is juniper that I harvested a couple of years ago. No Way Guilt Years, that's probably seen you there. That's what it is. I knew I recognized the name. So yeah, it's the White Well-Being Sphere. Sphere. I can't say sphere with a cigarette hanging out of my mouth. But this is juniper that I harvested a few years ago. It's extremely hard, which is unusual for juniper. I believe it's full of salt, sea salt. And I was trying to make a flute out of some of the straighter, longer pieces that I had for my friend Cass. Unfortunately, it failed 3 times, catastrophically. And the remainder, I was sitting down one night having a discussion on Discord, and the topic of the Blade movies came up, which reminded me of the comic book Blade, who used to carry teak daggers, which at some point I'm going to make a setup. Might not be teak, but it'll be something similar. And so I started carving a stake, partly a Buffy thing, partly Blade. I'm actually really pleased with the gloss that this has on it, even though it's not finished. It's just burned and sanded. But this is the remains of those. Callum. Hi, Callum. How you doing? Stopping by to say hi, leave a like. See you all on Lewis Eaters later. Need to grab lunch first. Okay, no problem. Let's see. June Verminius says, nice work, mate. Woodwork is a solid hobby. My father's a carpenter. Yeah. And I grew up doing woodwork pretty much from the time I could hold a hammer. But nothing formal, of course. But I did help build wharves, stages. A stage is a specific type of fishing premises for commercial fishery. It may, in fact, be a specifically Newfoundland term. I need to go and put this down because I don't want the oils in my fingers to get into this too much. But the idea is that I'm going to put those spikes on a burned spruce base, and I have various pieces of wood that I'm going to use to make a back for it. I may use this stuff. This is, and almost everything I do is reclaimed or personally harvested. But that piece, that board that I just showed you, is from the old Grand Bank Hospital. That was salvaged by myself, actually. Going on 10 years ago now, I think. But I'll make backing for the spruce cubes that I'm using to set the spikes in. Horns. I keep calling them spikes. I shouldn't. They're horns, for the sake of YouTube and various other things. And really, because of the way they're shaped, they're more horn-shaped than spikes, because they're not... oh, come on, YouTube. Give me the friggin' chat back. Top chat. Come on. Live chat. Oh, sure. Now it doesn't want to do that. Live chat. There we go. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Callum. Yeah. So what I'm making is just a designer or decorator piece, set of bookends. So just to show you the other piece I'm working with, just finished doing the burn in the hole there. So what I'll be doing is setting those horns down in these holes, cutting essentially a cubic shape, or maybe a little longer, and one will be on each bookend. So it's just something to occupy myself with more than anything else, because I don't have any big projects that I'm working on other than, well, I have a table here that I simply am not going to get to this year before it gets too cold. So that'll be early spring that I'll work on that. This shed is unheated and not particularly well insulated, so winter is not going to be a good time for me to be doing a lot of woodwork. Plus, being that it's going to be so very cold, working with wood when it's that cold is not a great idea. What else do I have going on? Yeah, so I need to put that down before oils get out of my skin and end up ruining that surface. Well, it's not really that it would ruin the surface, it's that it would change the chemical surface, and doing a finishing spray, I'm going to use a spray can varnish over that. That would potentially cause, not a run necessarily, but potentially cause it to sit differently, and I don't need to screw up my work any more than I occasionally do anyway. Let's see. Anything else come in on live chat? No. Okay. So yeah, that's the plan is, and I really looking at this piece. I really like the back of this. That's got some beautiful old grain in it. I'm pretty sure this is fir, and this tree was probably older than Canada when it was cut down, from the size of these rings, and from the thickness of the, excuse me, the growth lines. Let's see. So yeah, most of the actually almost all of the material I work with is reclaimed or organically harvested. The table that I'm talking about is right here beside me. I'll just show you that real quick. So this is right here. That is what was a 3-piece table. So it was a table that you could pull apart, drop a leaf into. That was being thrown out. When I discovered that it was a hardwood table, actually solid, real 1-piece, or well, solid wood, I cleaned it. And organically harvested means that it was harvested by me. Is there much of an energy crisis? I think pretty much everywhere is going to be in. If you're in the West, you're going to be in for a hard winter with the cost of energy because of artificial pressures created by governments. It's unfortunate, but it is what it is. The green agenda is doomed to fail. We're simply not there technologically yet. And I believe it's the French have decided to call nuclear green. Good move. I just got a notification from Discord. But yeah, just to answer your question, Billy, about organically harvested. Basically, it's a wild tree that I've taken pieces off of. And really, I probably shouldn't use the term organically. Personally harvested would be a better term. But as far as organically harvesting goes, the way I'm using it, what I mean by that is that I'm not going to a I'll get to that in just a second about net zero, Billy. But with what I do, the way I go and harvest wood is basically I take as needed. And for instance, one of my live streams not too long ago, I was hiking. I went up Farmer's Hill, which is the highest hill in the region, or in the area, and did a video from the top of that, which was a mistake. I shouldn't have gone that far looking for juniper branches, because nothing grows on top of the hills here. Too much wind. Nothing grows particularly high. But what I will do, probably before the weather gets too much colder, possibly even sometime this week if I'm feeling up to it, is go for another hike and try and find a few good-sized branches of juniper to attempt the flute again. I'm not giving up on that project. That I was too close with that project too many times to give up on it. Let's see. Billy asked about, mentioned net zero. Yeah, net zero, I don't know that it's necessarily suicidal, but it's definitely, it's counterproductive at this point. We can't get there yet. The thing I don't understand is why people aren't pushing, instead of pushing for carbon neutral or net zero or whatever, why people aren't simply saying, no, why aren't you making the engines more efficient? A more efficient engine means that you burn less gas, or that you burn the gas cleaner because you're using more of it. Therefore, you end up with fewer hydrocarbons. Genocidal or democidal instead of suicidal? No. I mean, none of those terms are really perfectly fitting, but the carbon they want to reduce is you. Yes and no. I mean, it's very easy to get conspiratorial and think, that there's a grand cabal, and I'm not saying there isn't, but that there's a grand cabal dedicated to the ideas expressed in the Georgia Guide, um, which I really suspect were blown up by that cabal, if it exists. If it exists. Um, for the sake of Susan, I have to say if, uh, because, yeah. But my thinking is that the Club of Rome, no, I'm not, but I will look into it. I had a pen on me a minute ago. I'll grab a pen in just a second and write that down. But groups like the Party of Davos, the WEF, uh, while I really want to ascribe genuinely good motives to these people, I like to think that they have good intentions. I think we're past the point of giving them that benefit. And it's, or rather, not so much giving them that benefit. It's fine to think they're misled. The problem is that they're dangerous. And they clearly intend to do some form of harm to society, Western society especially. And yeah, I'm not going to say too much more about that. Limits to growth, nice. So basically, yeah, it looks like it's probably more similar to the Georgia Guidestone stuff. Yeah. My biggest issue is that no, I don't think it's selfishness necessarily. I think a lot of it is Malthus. The ideology isn't new. No, most ideologies aren't new. They're usually reskins. Um, I don't think necessarily that it's selfishness. I think it's tunnel vision would probably be the best analogy, where they see a problem and they only know one method of which to deal. The idea that if the only tool you have is a hammer, every problem looks like a nail, um, which always reminds me of that Heinlein quote that specialization is for insects. Um, but when you have a very specialized sort of knowledge, it tends to blind you to other solutions. And uh, in the case of the economic manipulation that a lot of these people want to do, I mean, it's very obvious that, yes, no, I don't think that's necessarily it either, Billy. Um, I think it's tunnel vision from a personal level. They're invested in the prestige economy. Yeah, absolutely. I think they don't have the best interests of everybody at heart. Clearly, they have their best interests and the interests of their friends, or their idea of a community at heart. Um, and you do have to bear in mind that there is going to be a level of selfish control at one level. Below that, you get your useful idiots with power. Below that, you get your useful idiots with less power, some low level influence. These are the guys who run things like Antifa cells and things like that. Yeah, Antifa's not just a fucking idea. I won't buy that bullshit ever. But um, then you get the average person who will pick up snippets of things, but they're too busy just basically doing their lives. And uh, I guess the term that we could use for simplicity is normies. But most normies are simply just paying attention to their lives, keeping their families going, trying to cover the bills, uh, and not really aware of what people like, say, John Kerry is doing. John Kerry, who, by the way, pollutes more than, well, any six of us, I'm sure. Let's see. Billy says they see the plebs as useless eaters, and as technology advances, ever more so. I really don't want to be black-pilled, but yeah, Yeah, it's hard to say. Let me check my time here. I've got about 10 minutes. Okay. Um, uh, for a final thought, you know, uh, go make something because if nothing else, at least when you're working, you're doing something for yourself. And in my case, I'm doing something for other people. Whether that enriches you or not should stand alone. Um, well, no, not really. It's really hard to put a thought together really quickly on this platform. But go and make things because when you're making something, you are for that moment the god of your own little world. And when you actually create something, you, and this is more of a man thing, I think, because women are fortunate enough to be able to create life. Men can't do that. We can participate and we can definitely nurture and encourage and provide for and protect that life. But we don't get to actually produce life, except from the very beginning stage, which, it's the fun part. But for men, and for myself in particular, I've found that when I actually produce something, when there's something tangible that I can look at and go, I made this, then I have that sense of achievement, that sense of competence and confidence in myself. And those people are the most attractive to me. The people who uh, go and do things and develop their skills and use their skills. It's not enough to have a skill that you don't use. You have to be able to use that skill. And ideally, you should be using that skill to advance yourself, your family, your people. Right? Whatever level of distance from yourself you call your people, whether it's all the way out to race, nation, whatever. Um, but we should always be working to make our world better. And as much as I hate to say it, I like to think people like the WEF honestly believe that they're making a better world. Um, I suspect at the very top they know the only people they're working for are themselves. Uh, and there's semi. Okay. And yes, I do realize I just blew out the chroma by showing you my untanned neck. It's quite a camera trick. But uh, yeah, to put it shortly, um, go create because nobody can stop you from making something. They might tell you, oh, you're not allowed to make that. Okay, I'll make something else. You can kiss my ass because I still have these skills and you can't take them away from me. Um, I mean, do I think there's an apocalyptic event coming? I think we can stop it. That's my thinking. I think we're not so far gone yet as a species that we can't pull ourselves back from the brink. Other than that, folks, I'm going to cut it off here pretty quick and just check chat one last time. Yeah, I will definitely have a look for that limits of growth thing, Billy. Um, Actually, I better make a note of that or I will forget. And yeah, I'm old school. I make notes on my hand. uh, but yeah, thanks for being here, all of you guys. I absolutely appreciate the conversation and the input. Um, you know, regardless of uh, everything else, people are getting more and more aware of the things that are happening in the shadows. And it's making the people in the shadows more and more desperate. So it may get worse before it gets better, but it may not. They may actually realize, okay, this plan is not going to work now. So we need to put this on hold for, if they were particularly far seeing, they would realize that, give it another century and they might have a crack at it. If they were even more far seeing, they'd realize that, they're paying attention to the wrong science. Science doesn't work on a consensus. Never has, never will. Just because 2,000 people think the Earth is flat and one guy thinks it's round, that doesn't make the 2,000 people right. And I can walk into a room full of people who have the exact opposite opinion from me. For example, if they say this pen is blue and I say the pen is blue, then we all agree. If they say the pen is red and I say the pen is blue, well, who's right? And for those of you who happen to be red-green colorblind, it is a blue pen. But my point is that consensus does not determine reality. There is objective reality. As hard as that might be for certain people with certain flags to accept, yeah, reality is reality, and you're far better off accommodating yourself or acclimating yourself to reality than you are attempting to fight it. I think that's a good place to end. So I will, as usual, say I hope you're having a good day. I hope you continue to have good days, and rise again until lambs become lions. Bye-bye. Okay. Doop-de-doop-de-doo.